Welcome back to Trench Guards, everyone. In today's explainer, we're breaking down a truly unprecedented architectural shift in big tech computing. We're going to look closely at the confirmed facts, the verified documentation, and the actual physical hardware that is completely redrawing the battle lines of the tech industry. Our mission, as always, is to give you accurate, well-sourced analysis so you can understand exactly what happened, why it matters, and what you should be watching for next. Let's dive in.
So let's start with the absolute most critical confirmed fact announced at WWDC 2026. Apple is extending private cloud compute beyond its own data centers for the very first time. Now, according to the official Apple security research blog, Apple Intelligence workloads will actually route to Google Cloud infrastructure, specifically utilizing Nvidia Blackwell GPUs. Think about that for a second. This is a massive structural pivot for a company that has historically been defined by entirely owning its technology stack.
To really understand why this matters, we have to look at the operational shift. Originally, Apple assured its users that complex AI tasks would run exclusively on Apple silicon inside their own highly controlled data centers. But the newly verified reality, which is detailed right there on their own security blog, is that Apple is now renting space from its fiercest competitor.
Now, you might be wondering why the sudden change. Well, according to industry reports and statements surrounding the new Apple Foundation models, Apple's own hardware was just struggling in testing. It ran the new Siri models way too slowly. They really needed to handle what they call agentic tool use and complex reasoning tasks. And to prevent those frustrating user experience bottlenecks, they were basically forced to route these heavy, demanding AI workloads off of their own silicon and straight onto Google's Nvidia-equipped infrastructure.
So how exactly does Apple plan to protect your data while renting space from Google? This is where the engineering gets absolutely fascinating. They've engineered what is effectively a triple root of trust. Because Apple can't just rely on Google's standard security, they've layered 3 different vendors' silicon protections. Step 1 relies on Nvidia Blackwell's hardware-rooted confidential computing, which encrypts data right inside the processing memory. Step 2 passes that data through Intel CPUs using Trust Domain Extensions, or TDX. This creates a cryptographic wall, isolating the code from the cloud operating system. And finally, Step 3 anchors the whole shebang with Google's custom Titan Secure boot chip. This creates what the industry calls zero operator access, meaning there is cryptographic proof that not even Google's own engineers can access the inference data.
And here is the physical foundation for that end-to-end confidential inference pipeline. It's the Nvidia Blackwell HGX B200. This is the raw compute engine that Apple simply could not match in-house in time for this rollout.
As cited in NVIDIA's official datasheet, the B200 provides 15 times faster real-time large language model inference compared to previous generations. That is exactly the computational horsepower Apple needed for its massive new Apple Foundation models, which, by the way, were co-developed with Google on Gemini technology. At the end of the day, speed and raw processing power are the core reasons this deal exists.
But here's where we really see how deeply Apple distrusts third-party infrastructure. They aren't just taking Google's word that the servers are secure. No way. Apple maintains a strict, append-only, cryptographically verifiable ledger tracking every single piece of Google Cloud hardware in this specific fleet. If one single component, like literally a cable or a chip, in Google's fleet is altered without cryptographic authorization, the system immediately drops the connection to guard against supply chain tampering. It's intense.
In tech journalism, we don't just blindly trust corporate security claims, right? We look at the verified audits. A recent security assessment published on Archive, conducted collaboratively by Google and Intel, specifically looked at the Intel TDX layer, which, remember, is the second step in Apple's security stack. They actually found multiple vulnerabilities, including one that enables a virtual machine manager to fully compromise a trusted domain, plus 4 separate memory leak vulnerabilities. This proves exactly why Apple requires a multi-vendor, defense in-depth approach. A single layer of confidential computing? Definitely not enough. The security absolutely requires iterative refinement and overlapping layers of hardware protection.
We have to talk about the physical consequences of this, because this level of compute comes with an unavoidable cost that extends far beyond the data center. According to Google's officially published July 2026 environmental report, the company's carbon emissions have surged by an incredible 81% compared to their 2019 baseline. This completely disrupts their stated goal of reaching net zero by 2030. The official data here shows an 18% year-over-year jump from 2024 to 2025 alone. Google explicitly stated that this increase is driven primarily by supply chain activities, hardware manufacturing, and the extreme power load required for new AI data center construction.
Running dense, continuous AI inference on thousands of GPUs requires massive amounts of electricity and cooling.
Google's chief sustainability officer, Kate Brandt, actually confirmed this infrastructure reality on the record. She acknowledges that the path to their climate ambitions won't be linear, simply because AI's energy demands are currently outpacing clean power scaling on the global grid. It's the hidden operational tax of these advanced AI capabilities.
Let's dive into what this all means for the broader technology industry moving forward. Defense and enterprise systems architect Jonathan Sandhu accurately framed this situation in a recent analysis. He points out that this complex hardware stack isn't really a privacy triumph, it is a mandatory business capitulation. Apple needed Google's inference capabilities, and they had to figure out a way to use them without completely destroying their own privacy narrative.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that consumer attention and device dominance no longer matter if a company lacks the raw, specialized silicon infrastructure to back it up. The private cloud is no longer private in the traditional sense. It's now a shared dependency on highly specialized AI hardware, primarily controlled by Nvidia and housed within the massive data complexes of hyperscalers like Google.
We're going to leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. For decades, owning the consumer device was the ultimate power play. But today, if the richest walled garden in the world cannot compute its way out of this bottleneck alone and has to rely on Google's cloud and Nvidia's silicon, what does that mean for the rest of the industry? Who truly controls the sovereign monopoly of the future? Think about that as these platforms continue to evolve. Thank you so much for joining us on Trend Guards, and we will see you in the next explainer.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next video.